Yo, 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 it's Salaam Nerds. My name is Jazz, and yes, unfortunately, I do not have a nickname this week because our boy Neebs is in Arizona for a wedding. Oh
Hey,
no.
weddings.
Oh, that's why he bailed, huh?
Yeah, that's why he
He's being real
bailed.
cryptic.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's not his wedding, unfortunately, otherwise we'd all be invited, but he's there for a friend. She's having a great time, so good for her. We are also missing our boy Razi this week because he's currently at the UN General Assembly doing big boy jobs while we're here talking about Star Wars. So, Razi, we miss you. Can't wait to have you back next week. But for now, let me introduce our guest. We have Adom joining us once again. Adom.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be back, and this is the best episode so far. So cannot wait.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. And then joining us again for the first time, it's Michael Terrell Ford III. Michael, how you doing, man?
I am doing good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here in this seminal episode. We finally get the live action debut of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I am ready to talk about it along with some other things that may not be safe for work. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I am looking forward to that. But real quick, man, what we've had a dome on for the past couple of weeks. Tell us about what you do and what other podcasts or streams that you're on.
So my main project, I mean, I occasionally write for Murphy's Multiverse, and I occasionally contribute content there, and I work sometimes with the sorry the Agents of Fandom community here and there. But my main project that I've been working on for the better part of 3 years is the Racial Draft podcast. It's a
Mm-hmm.
podcast about race and nerd culture. We kind of frame it around a superhero fantasy draft, and we try to have discussions about race bending and character importance within that lens. The nerd spaces. When you're a person of color, you definitely know what it's like to see characters that are coded as a different race as what they might conventionally be in canon, and we try to explore those discussions on the podcast and through the project.
Yeah, well, glad to have you here because fun fact, everybody, I'm on the South Asian delegation for the Racial Draft podcast. So had to give a shout out to our
Nice.
squad. What are we currently
Yeah.
fourth right now in the rankings? So
Yeah,
I gotta
moving up in the world. I've noticed it. I've been paying attention.
yeah, we know what's
yeah,
going on.
yeah, we got two people of African descent here, so I think we get the first two picks, just not the first one. First two picks.
Yeah, I mean, consistently top five finishers, but there have been, our mutual friend Carlos does like to flex the fact that he's a three season champion and two-time runner up. So it's his season 6. So you guys do the math.
Yeah, right. No, we love you, Carlos. I hate how good you are at this game. I just had to put that out there. But all right, everybody, let's jump into Ahsoka now. So, who wants to give a quick recap? Because I'm still in my feels. I'm still hyped. I just finished the episode. One of you two, if you are a bit more calm than I am, can you please give us a quick rundown of the intro here?
I mean, I can't do the scene by scene breakdown. I can do sort of the 3-part synopsis. We'll start on in hyperspace, whatever you want to call it, the hyperspace highway, where Ahsoka and Huyang are just kind of passing the time. Uh, Ahsoka lets Huyang know that she saw through the Force that Sabine. I wouldn't say betrayed her per se, but Ahsoka definitely feels betrayed,
For
and
sure.
Hu Yang in his way uh, kind of reassures her that the Force has its own purpose that she may not be able to see, and perhaps there's more to the decision that Sabine made. And she should look at it maybe less like uh, a betrayal and more like Sabine walking her own path. And then we get a little bit of an Easter egg because it turns out that Hu Yang's seen all the DVDs. Like he, he's watched all of the movies, and he knows that in the universe, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, is how these stories get started. So we got hat tip to whichever nerd came up with that, and that is, of course, the title of the episode, right? A galaxy
Far, far away.
You know, so that is a double entendre. Um, fast forward, meanwhile, in the galaxy far, far away, further and further away, we get our villain trio of Morgan, what's the guy's Balin, and Morgan, Balin, and sorry guys,
Shin Hati.
Shin Hati, yes. Yeah. I knew the Hati part. I couldn't remember the Shin. They arrive and they are met by Morgan's. We'll call them night cousins. They're night sisters, but they're twice removed. So we meet them. They speak in the kind of cool witchcrafty tri voice. And as has been prophesied, they a little discomfort again from our girl Shin. Don't care for witches. That's what I'm hearing. And and she's surrounded by witches. I also noticed that the Night Sisters don't really care for pronouns. Not for your preferred pronouns. They just, everybody's an it to them. It smells it smells of Jedi. And they find out that Sabine was brought along for the ride, which was not part of the plan. And Balin's cool as a cucumber as ever. He realizes that she has a purpose to serve, so he's reassuring them that her purpose will be served. And then they just kind of hang out. They're definite power move. We've all experienced it. We've got an appointment, and they're like, yeah, he'll be here when he's here. And that's Thrawn. So that leaves us time for us to get a little heart to heart between our master and apprentice, our evil master and apprentice, that is, which is Balin and Shin, where we get a little bit more insight into what motivates Balin, where Balin explains that he was in the Order, and he doesn't really miss being a Jedi as much as he misses what he used to believe, how he used to feel, how being a Jedi made him feel. And he's kind of lost that feeling, and he's trying to restore the feeling by fight with it, whatever this mysterious force that's going to provide power is on this. Peridia is the name of the planet, right?
Peridia.
On planet Peridia, there's apparently some force that he believes that the night cousins, we'll call them, that they're leaving the planet, but there's the power that they can retrieve. He wants to start anew. He wants to end the cycles, break the wheel, if you will, of the Empire rising and the Jedi's rising and back and forth. Apparently, he's also seen the Star Wars movies, and he knows that there are sequels coming where this pattern repeats itself. And he's like, "No, we need an offshoot. We need an offshoot trilogy. Damn it!" So
this is perfect. Yeah.
So that's what he's looking for. And then we get a cut to Sabine.
Well, let's stop right here. Let's yeah, that's a whole lot of Star Wars real quick. So I know, right? I mean, you're doing great so far, but before people start forgetting things, let's talk about certain scenes. Adom.
Yeah.
When we were in the whale or the Purgle's mouth, what did you think about that scene? Because I know MTF just touched on a very important thing, and that was how Hu Yang interacted with Ahsoka there. What were your thoughts on that scene?
I thought it was very interesting that Ahsoka kind of told Hu Yang, hey, through the Force, I found out that she betrayed me. And I kind of stopped for a second. I was like, that's interesting that she was able to do that, because like Obi-Wan couldn't sense Anakin betrayed him through the Force when Order 66 happened. I mean, he basically was in denial about it until Yoda made him watch the video of Anakin just chopping up people in the temple. I was like, okay, Ahsoka, I see you trying to get to the beat of the thing. But I thought that, Hu Yang kind of giving her he really just straight up mastered her. Okay, Ahsoka, you're the apprentice in this situation for a minute. Let me school you on this. The Force will provide. There are paths for her. Maybe it's only going to work in her favor, and that's how that's going to go. And I thought that was a very interesting tie to what happens when the Night Sisters meet Sabine, because immediately, as Michael had said, they immediately go, "It reeks of Jedi," and they lock her up, and she's kind of like, "Couldn't be me. I'm not a Jedi," but they clearly picked up on that. So I thought that was interesting. And I love the fact that the scene between Ahsoka and Huyang was before like the opening credits of this episode, where we got the actual name of the episode, Far, Far Away. And Mike, it's actually a triple entendre, because if you go back to when Filoni was at Star Wars Day, the crowd asked him, "Where's Thrawn?" And he said, "Okay, you want me to tell you?" And he literally said, "He's far, far away," which is the name of the episode. I thought that was a nice little callback to what they were talking about. But yeah, I thought it was an awesome setup. And, if we could jump just a little bit forward, I thought that when the Chimera shows up, it was probably one of the best Star Wars entrances that I've ever seen. I mean, they totally nailed the music. I love the fact that we got the Star Destroyer first, and it was looming, and you could see that it was pretty banged up. I mean, it looked like a couple of the engines were out. And when they showed the stormtroopers before Thrawn actually walks up, I thought it was very interesting that most of the stormtroopers' armor was pretty damaged. It looked like it had been sewn back together. I noticed that all the cloth on them was completely red, and I was wondering, all right, did the Night Sisters, did they have a hand in this? Did they fix it? And there's this Japanese art of kind of repairing broken pottery with gold. It's called kintsugi. And I thought that was kind of awesome how they definitely had that in there with all mainly the stormtroopers' helmets. They were all kind of repaired that way, showing that they've been through some shit in their exile, clearly. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
What it reminded me of is, when I was a kid and I broke my toys and I tried to crazy glue them together so that I could keep playing with them. That was the emotional vibe that I was getting from the much harder, much rougher Thrawn troopers that we got.
Yeah, no, when I saw the Star Destroyer come in with the gold replacements, I'm like, where did they get those? Or did they get those? Did they have to just make them out here by themselves and figure it out? Because it definitely didn't fit any specs that the Star Destroyers had. So it was fascinating to see just how much damage they've been through. And then, like Adom was saying, even the Thrawn troopers, so we're now calling them, all the battle damage they've had, this has not been easy for them. So I'm very glad they're showing just how much stress, how much they've had to fight, how much they've had to try to survive here in this wild world. And it's really cool to see just the impact of that. And when we see Thrawn coming out, what did y'all think? Let's start with the MTF.
So it was epic. It really felt epic. The way that they were, like I said, the dirty Thrawn troopers were sort of lined up, looking just intimidating as hell. And then the way that they had the chant for Thrawn as he came out, still looking regal, even though it's been 10 years. Even though there has been some discourse about maybe the years not being as kind to Thrawn in terms of him keeping up with his workout regimen, but who among us after being in exile, it's like the pandemic. In the first couple months you're keeping up your workouts, then after a while you got other priorities. So that's how I saw it. I also I'm really curious about what his plan was. You guys were thinking, you guys mentioned the I think it was the Japanese art with the gold, but that got me thinking, I doubt it's gold. I doubt that material is gold. And in the background they had a lot of things that they were loading onto the ship, and what I'm wondering is if that same material that's been woven into the Star Destroyer and has been woven into their armor is some kind of new exotic material that we're going to hear about. Hey, and
real quick, man. Before
Neebs, what's going on?
Neebs joined the chat real quick from Arizona. MTF, why don't you finish your thought? But Neebs, man, what's up, dude? Hey, he's trying to unmute. Oh, nope, he dipped. All right, cool. I guess he wanted to say hi to us, and then he's out. All right, so yeah, as you were saying, oh, wow, he's on a date. Okay.
Ooh.
What?
Wait, hold up.
Okay.
No, I was checking in on the podcast.
Neebs.
Okay.
Oh. All right, yeah. So he was checking on the podcast. He's on a date. Good for him, brother. Best of luck to
Wow.
you.
Well,
But
speaking of a date, we have to talk about the most sexual scene in Star Wars history, and it involves a Star Destroyer and a tower. I
that's
mean,
what you meant.
the Mormons call it soaking, and I saw a Star Destroyer mount a tower very slowly and very deliberately, and I've listened. We've seen a lot of dockings in our day, but no docking as overtly sexual as Thrawn, just doing it to Night Sister Tower, and then they had the nerve later in the episode to cut back to the scene of it just kind of resting there, just resting on the tower. Just, listen, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's something to that. There's some kind of connection happening. And who among us? Who among us after many years of being in a different place, you try some different things out. So
I'm dead. Adom.
Oh man, I don't know where to begin, but let me just say this. So it reminded me of one of Tarkin's lines from episode 4 where he says, "We'll crush the rebellion in one smooth stroke." I was like, well, we got the smooth stroke with the Star Destroyer on top of the tower. So yeah, I love the fact that we go back to just finish up on Thrawn's entrance. You kind of got the slow roll where you got a shot of the stormtroopers, you got his feet, then you kind of got his legs. I love the fact that he walked up and the camera pans to him and there was no ceremony. He's just talking and then he says, I wrote this down. He says, "What was first a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us." I was like, damn, he's just totally back. Didn't even break any cadence at all. Like he's been waiting for this and he's ready to go. And Mike, you're completely right. The Thrawn P90X workout definitely did not follow him into exile. He definitely he's been hitting the Java juice a little bit, I think. Exile was not kind to him, so hopefully he's going to be stuck on the bridge, not any hand-to-hand combat, because that's not going to go well for him, I think, in his current state. But I also love the fact that when the Night Sisters tell him, they brought Sabine. And then Bail introduces himself, and he goes, "General, you must be from the Jedi Order." It's almost like he knows him already. And then he gives a kind of jab talking about Anakin and Vader, like, "Oh, I left the Order." And he's like, "Well, you're not the first person to do that." And then he goes into, "All right, take me to Sabine. That's a familiar face." I love the fact that they just completely rewarded the people who have watched Clone Wars and Rebels with Thrawn's entrance. They didn't even bother trying to explain, like, what he is, what he's going to do. It literally just popped him right in and like, hey, he's here. He's in live action. We got the same guy who did the voice. I thought it was perfect. I mentioned this on a previous podcast, Jazz. When they announced that Ahsoka was coming out, I went back and I've been listening to all the Thrawn books. So I did Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command, and then I did Thrawn from 2017, Thrawn Treason, Thrawn Alliances. And I'm on the last book of the prequels, Thrawn Ascendancy, and it's been awesome to just kind of seamlessly weave into that with the way the show has gone. So if you're not up on the books and some of the Chiss lore, I highly recommend it. It's some awesome Star Wars writing.
For sure.
So tying to that, it's been a while since I read the original Zahn trilogy, which is no longer canon, of course. But there was one element that I've always kind of been intrigued by and thought that it should make its way into the canon. I'm not sure the exact mechanism that they'll use, but in the original trilogy, Thrawn had sort of figured out a way to create a bubble within which
I was hoping you'd bring this up. Yes.
Within which the Force does not exist. What I'm wondering is if in those in those things that they're loading up, is that sort of key, whether it's the beings that were in the novels, or whether it's that even potentially that material that's been woven into their uniforms, whether they can sort of use that to create some kind of, for lack of a better term, like anti-Force material, which would create this whole new threat and whole new dimension to Thrawn as a potential Star Wars big bad.
So you're talking about the Yislamiri. They're like little lizards, and he wears them on essentially his neck and his chest. And he walks around and it creates a Force bubble. You're absolutely right. But because this is all very fresh to me. So in the canon books, he is aware of Luke Skywalker, and I don't want to say he's terrified, but he's aware that like, hey, I have to protect myself. So that's why they loaded up so many Ysalamiri to protect from this new Jedi threat. I don't actually think, if we're talking about conspiracy theories now, I think those canisters are full of Night Sister corpses, and he's going to resurrect the zombie army. I think that's why they were talking. I think that's why they were talking about the catacombs. And if you remember in Clone Wars, when they're on Dathomir, the Night Sisters, I think that's when Grievous is there. They totally resurrect some of their old, their dead cousins as we're deeming them. Like, I really like that. I'm going to use that. Their dead cousins to bring it back. So I think that's what is being loaded up. I don't think they're going to bring in just somebody like this. I actually think that because of this is gone. I know, Jazz, I think you were talking about in a previous episode where you thought Thrawn would be coming in the last episode. I think you had said that. So that's obviously not the case now. But I actually think that they're going to hold some stuff back because of the Heir to the Empire movie that they're going to make. So, Mike, we could see the Ysalamiri in the movie that they make, because I think that they're going to actually make a version of Heir to the Empire. They're going to have to bring in Luke, Leia, and Han and younger versions of themselves, and that's where we might see the force blocking ability that you're talking about.
That's a very exciting idea, and oh my god, I'm so hyped right now.
So it's funny that you mentioned the dark magic. Or is that what they called it? They called it dark magic, not night magic, right? The minute they showed us Purgle bones, that brought my mind to Game of Thrones, Night's King, Army of the Dead. What happens if the Night Sisters find a way to create zombie Purgles? Is that too far? Is that too much?
Bro.
No, I don't think it is, because if you remember later in the episode, he tells, I love this line, he says, if any space whales approach, destroy them with prejudice. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're really about taking these corpses down. So you could be right.
When he said that line, I felt it. I'm like, I actually didn't talk about what I felt about Thrawn. I had the same reaction as all of you. He was kind of chubby, and I'm like, okay, they're not keeping accurate to the CGI. But then when he said that line, all of that went out the window, and I'm like, you know what? This is the Thrawn I remember. Just cold, calculated, evil, like sinister. Like, this is the Thrawn I wanted to see, and he just executed it perfectly. So yes, this is so much fun, and I love what he did right after. So real quick, let's talk about what happened in the next scene, which is where he actually let a Sabine go. He gave her a howler, and he honored the agreement Balin's skull gave her. And so this was another part of Thrawn that I really love, because even in Rebels, right, he always honored contracts. He honored a certain code. It's not exactly written, but he has always been true to this. He's always true to keeping his word, making things happen. And he held up their end of the bargain, where he said, hey, we said you can find Ezra. Here you go. Here's a howler. Go at it. Now, obviously, they never promised anything about not hunting them, and that's what they're going to do. And so this is exactly what I would expect from Thrawn. What are your thoughts?
That seems super petty, though. I have to admit, it seemed petty. Like, he already said, I don't care if I leave them behind. He could have just, I've got bigger fish to fry. It seemed a little pettier than I would normally expect of Thrawn.
Adom, what are your thoughts?
So I don't know, because all the books are fresh to me. I disagree. I don't think it was petty. I think it was pretty much in character. He's showing, okay, even though you're my enemy, I will respect where you're from. I mean, if you remember in Rebels, and even in some of the books, Thrawn is obsessed with art, and he uses art to understand other people. And if you remember, he had actually captured a whole bunch of Mandalorian art when Sabine was a prisoner, and she was pissed that he had it. And so I think this is kind of like his way of being like, I'm still the same person you remember. Like, I am your enemy, but, I respect what you've done. And because, I think he said something like, you've helped my cause, so, I will honor our agreement. Like, he basically said, hey, you made sure that I could get out of exile. Here's a token back for it. But as soon as she leaves, it's like you said, Mike, hey, we're going to send some people out to hunt you. And also he added, like, by the way, I'm leaving here very shortly. And once I do, no one else is coming here. So, like, are you sure you want to have your agreement honored to go chase Ezra? If you do, all right, fine. I'll give you the howler. You can go out and find him. I thought it was also interesting that he had said, okay, we'll give you some rations. we'll give you a howler. And the last bit he added was really interesting to me. He said, okay, we'll give you the intel on Ezra's latest whereabouts. That planet, there isn't a lot going on. They know about the nomads there. So part of me thinks that they knew exactly where Ezra was and they were just waiting to use that.
So my theory on that is that Ezra has also figured out some way to block his presence, because I think what they're picking up on are remnants of it. By the time they get there, they've already moved on. He somehow found a way to delay his force presence in the area, because otherwise he should have been dead by now. And yeah, I think they were going to use Sabine here because she's probably the only one in the universe who can track Ezra down, and that will lead them to him. Now, Thrawn, being the calculated person that he is, he's not going to let a loose thread like Ezra remain alive out there. I think he definitely wanted to use Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati to go kill him, even though he was like, all right, we're going to use her. And that's exactly what he told Baylan. It's like, yeah, she'll serve her purpose. So somehow Thrawn had calculated all of this way ahead of time.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, people were questioning why, if Thrawn knew where Ezra was, why he didn't kill him a long time ago. And my thought process was, well, at this juncture, he's more valuable as bait. He's more valuable alive for someone like Sabine to come back there to get him than if he were already dead. That if he, I mean, now granted, he could have captured him and taken him as a hostage and just, kept him chained up somewhere. But the principle is still, if he knows where Ezra is, then he can use that as leverage against anyone else that might encounter him that would be looking for Ezra.
It's a classic Thrawn move, I would agree.
It's fascinating when you think about it, because I think the reason he didn't capture Ezra is I think he knows enough about the Force to know that the Force could warn other Jedi or other Force-sensitive individuals about what's happening. So he was playing chess here while everyone else is playing checkers. He's like, no, I'm going to leave him. I'm going to leave him alive. I'm going to leave him be, let him do his own thing, and this is bait. But I know I cannot interfere, because if I do, it could ruin a future plan.
So was he playing chess or was he playing chess? Sorry.
Ooh. Real quick, let's go to the comments. Razi, who could not make it to our podcast tonight, mentioned that he still kept Hera's heirloom, which is the Kalikori that the Twi'leks use to mark their family tree. And so the fact that he kept that all these years to show that we're in for one hell of a showdown. And it's going to foreshadow some kind of interaction between Captain Hera and Admiral Thrawn, so I'm very excited to see that. But before we go on to the next section real quick, let's take our first commercial break. We'll be back real soon. Great, welcome back, everybody. For those of you on the stream, yeah, obviously we don't have a commercial here. That's really just for the podcast listeners on Spotify and Apple Music. But yeah, let's jump right back into it. So the Kalikori, the fact that he still has it. Adom, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I mentioned this before. He loves art. He, collects it. His quarters and throne room are always decorated with it. I think he's keeping it for a couple of purposes. One, just to keep himself, occupied and engaged, because he's cut off from exploring new art where he is now. And two, he also knows that at some point I'm going to be out of this exile and I might need this to either bargain my way out of it or lay a trap or something like that. So I think it's all just laying the breadcrumbs for just pissing off, I guess we're calling them the New Republic now, in any ways that he can to draw them off of whatever his other plans are. I mean, he clearly has a lot of things in motion as soon as he gets back from the far, far away place, where he is now. But what's interesting is I'm very curious to know how much information he knows about what's happened, because, I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but there's another character who we meet in this episode who has no idea what's happened since he was taken away. And so I'm curious to know, because last time we saw Thrawn, this was the Siege of Lothal. So he doesn't know anything about Yavin, doesn't know anything about the Death Star, doesn't know anything about Hoth, nothing about, Endor or anything like that. So I'm curious to know what his plans are for when he goes actually back, because he probably has an idea that the Empire is in the same spot, but knowing that it's completely gone and he's essentially going to have to bring it back, that's very interesting to me when it comes to people like Hera.
Well, MTF, what are your thoughts? Because I think you probably have the best ideas here for this.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Obviously he has whatever information he would have gotten from Morgan. I wasn't keen on how much access they had in with databases and the like. The fact that he sent, I think it was Morgan that he sent to try to put together a file on Ahsoka, sort of suggested that he had a fair amount of records, but these would have been records from beforehand. Maybe she did bring in her ship. I mean, she's got this that giant ring that's just hanging up there. Maybe of the things that he would have sent for, he definitely would have sent for as much information about what's happened since he's left as possible. So maybe there's a droid that could give him the quick recap. Previously on Star Wars. He's just banging. He's just been binging the Clone Wars, the later seasons. And Rebels and the Bad Batch. He's done it all. He's got the whole Disney Plus subscription. But I would imagine that by the finale, he's not only learned about everything that's happened thus far, but has figured out his strategy for taking over the Shadow Council and staying under the radar of the New Republic. Who probably, if we're being honest, there's probably a spy in the New Republic that's just waiting to whatever the Thrawn version of Hail Hydra is just waiting to be said. From within, they're spies, clearly.
I believe it. I totally believe that. And when you're talking about the New Republic, when he's going to fly under the radar, I also believe that's going to happen because the New Republic really just seems so incompetent here that even in the second episode, right, where they're building this hyperspace ring, they had Imperial sympathizers just right under the nose taking parts and under the guise of business, and no one said a damn thing. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there were way more spies in here, and I think we're going to see a lot of them very soon. All right, Adom, do you want to do a recap of what happened next? Or should I keep going?
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
do
we
it,
have
man. Go for
the
it.
different thread of Sabine out there looking for her friend, and her Howler and her kind of have a little bit of a master dog moment where you abandoned me, how dare you? When the Howler kind of just lowers his head, puts his tail between his legs, and tries to help her further, and leads them to this place where there are all these rocks saying that laying down. And at first, she thinks that the Howler is completely stupid because it stops to get a drink of water. But then the rocks start moving, and these little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters start popping up out of nowhere. And I have a thread to go with that further, so just hold on to that. So they all start popping up. There's a whole bunch of them, and I thought it was really interesting how she's just trying to talk basic to them, and they're just not responding at all. She keeps saying Ezra, and then all of a sudden, one of them in the middle of its speech just goes, "Oh yeah, Ezra Bridger, this way." It's like, wait a minute, what? Okay, so they leave the canyon, and I think in between that scene, there's another scene between Balin and Shin where they're talking about, kind of what's out there. And Shin, to me, is very, very skeptical of everything about, their turn to lead and what this great power is. I still don't know exactly what Balin is talking about, this greater thing that he's after. It's going to help him achieve his mission. But I thought it was very interesting. Another master and apprentice conversation, a very nuanced one that we don't really get between Jedi and master. I feel like most of the conversations between master and apprentice are either really volatile or they're just agreeing with each other. You either have the Anakin and Obi-Wan, or you kind of have the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan where they're just bickering with each other. So I feel like that was a very different, nuanced conversation.
It really does feel like. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Jazz, go ahead.
No. Hold up. Did you just call them Jedi?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It really does feel like Balon considers himself sort of staying in keeping with the Jedi way. it feels like how often people say that that villains think that they're the hero of their own story. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think he believes in his heart of hearts that the Jedi lost their way, and he's trying to maintain the good aspects of what made being a Jedi great, but use this new power to kind of course correct whatever that may be. I mean, and even the way that he talked disdainfully about the Boken Jedi that were trained up outside of the temple. He was like he was basically calling them bootleg Jedis, and he was like, but I trained you to be so much more than that. I think he looks at what he's doing to be to capture what's maybe a little smattering of what the Sith do, but mostly what the Jedi do.
So
He's
he's an
definitely
end justifies the means kind of Jedi. It's very interesting, Adom, you brought this up because I really am curious to know what your thoughts are. Like, is he still a Jedi or is he not? I mean, or he's somewhere in between? What do you think, man?
so he's definitely somewhere in between. If you go back a couple of episodes, I think it's maybe the first one when they were talking about killing Ahsoka, and he said it'd be such a shame there's so few Jedi left. I was like, oh, he's not totally far gone. He appreciates her presence in the Force and things like that, but it's still hard to get a read on him. I think I mentioned this in early episode, but when they first casted the show, I actually thought that Ray Stevenson was playing Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. I have to mention that. I thought he was playing Darth Sabayoth, who is one of the main villains from the Heir to the Empire books, who is actually Palpatine and had a clone. This is a complete spoiler from Heir to the Empire. It's 40 years old, whatever. So in the books,
Fair.
Palpatine had cloned an older Jedi named Sabayoth and stuck him on a world called Wayland, and Thrawn actually makes his way to Wayland. And it's funny, Mike, you mentioned the Force blocking. This is how Thrawn actually is able to first approach Sabayoth, because he has the Islamiri blocking the Force. We can actually have a conversation with him. And so I thought originally when Stevenson was cast, he was playing Darth Sabayoth, complete Dark Jedi. He's after, in the books, he's completely after Luke and Leia's two twins that she's carrying in the books. And so this is a very different take on that character, or I guess the version of that character. I'm glad Baylan Skoll has been created because I think he's an awesome character. But I would like one or two flashbacks on his character, just to kind of paint the background on him a little bit, to get more of a read on him, because there's a lot of time between when Order 66 happened for him, because he told Shin about it, and now. I mean, he clearly was not Shin's master at the time. So I want to know, like, how did you find Shin? Like, was it some like Force Unleashed moment where you're on a mission and then you find a baby and then you just decide to bring him along, or was it somebody else's apprentice? I want to know their whole backstory, because there's a lot there. I think that would help inform kind of what his mission is, because he's in the middle. I don't think he's complete Jedi. He's not complete Sith, but he's after something that I think leans more towards the Sith side out of things, which is just trying to control everything. Jedi are more kind of let things go and let the Force flow to them. He's definitely more on the, I want to find this big power and control everything, and kind of, as you mentioned, kind of break the wheel. Kind of a little bit of Daenerys and Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. Like, I don't want to climb the ladder of chaos. I want to break the ladder. That's kind of the vibes that I get from him.
But again, it doesn't seem like he wants to rule, though. That's the weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really does feel like he wants to create a new order, a new order of Force users, whether they're called Jedi or called something else, and have almost sort of transcend the light side, dark side dichotomy, and create people have talked about gray Jedi for years, but something akin to that, where they're not caught between those poles. It's going to be interesting to see whether that's the realm, the direction that they take the story, but that's what it's sort of giving for me. That's the vibe that it's giving.
He kind of reminds me of Malicos from Fallen Order a little bit too.
It's fascinating because, like, the show's called Ahsoka, and she also left the Jedi Order. Her sabers are white, and so now we see Baylan Skoll essentially preach the same thing, but he leans a bit more Sith, while Ahsoka leans a bit more Jedi. It's really cool to see the dichotomy here.
Yeah, and it's leading to that we're not too different, you and I.
Yeah, right.
Speech that you always get.
Also, another thing y'all keep pointing out, this is very Game of Thrones like. Like, even the end scene, or the end credits, where they have the star map, it's like the intro for Game of Thrones, where they're showing the map of Westeros and all the places people are, and now suddenly we see the same thing, like, oh, we're going to break the wheel, or we're going to break the cycle. Is this not just a Game of Thrones ripoff at this point?
I mean, if there's zombie Purgle, I think we're
yeah, exactly. We're getting Army of the Dead, leading, going, spending a season marching on Coruscant. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting to season 6, we'll call it, of Game of Thrones. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. This is how Game of Thrones should end, and Star Wars is going to fix it and show how it's done.
Hopefully, yeah.
Which is even more fascinating because weren't the D&D brothers, weren't they supposed to lead a Star Wars project, but then got kicked off because they botched?
They were.
Yeah. Oh, is this the whole game here?
Yeah, and Hu Yang's gonna finish the books. He's gonna...
Oh my God.
Wait a minute! No, he's already finished them. They're already done. Oh
my God, This is epic.
But here, let me finish the recap, bringing in our last reveal. So,
sure.
Sabine goes with the little Ninja Turtles to their camp, and when there are Ninja Turtles around, there has to be a splinter, right? So, we get to the camp. Sabine's looking around. She sees this little community of people that's kind of living there, and she's a little disappointed that, she was hoping to see more. And I thought it was a great shot where the camera pans around just enough where you can see the silhouette of someone behind her. And you hear a voice, and he says, "I knew I could count on you." And bam, we finally get Ezra in live action, not in a hologram. And he's real, like, he kind of looks like white people think Jesus should look in real life. That's kind of how I thought about with the beard and everything. I was like, that's how Jesus actually probably looked in real life, not this whitewash nonsense. So he's standing there, and I mean, I was kind of expecting a little bit of a darker mood from him, but he was a complete opposite. He was cheerful, he was hopeful, and I mean, he clearly wanted to know, like, hey, how'd you get here? Like, did my plan work? And Sabine was very just like, it's almost like when your girl has bad news, but she doesn't want to give it to you. And she was just like, you know what? Let me just enjoy this, and I'll tell you the bad stuff later. And he just kind of went with it. So she clearly is going to disappoint him when he finds out that she basically betrayed Ahsoka to get there. But, more to be seen from that. And I
kept thinking of that conceited gif, the conceited gif, the reaction gif when he was like, "I can't wait to get home." It was like,
yeah. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to go home?
Sure.
Yeah. And I was actually a little surprised that Sabine did not present his lightsaber back to him.
Argument could be made. It's not his lightsaber anymore.
I was a little surprised, but then it could have been like the whole thing, like, "Hey, this belongs to you," and then he could have been like, "Actually, it suits you better," and then we could have had the actual, gifting of it. But I thought that, there was a lot there.
I think there's going to be a reveal that he built his own lightsaber. They're saving it because at this point he's got nothing to fight. But I could see that happening in the heat of battle, where she tries to give him the lightsaber, and he says, no, take it, and then he breaks out his own lightsaber that's all tricked out and cool.
I can't wait for that.
You got to sell toys, right? You got to sell the upgraded Ezra saber.
I believe it 100%. He has another lightsaber somewhere. And real quick, Adom, NTF, what do you think the color's going to be? Because I'm real curious about this one.
So I hope it's double-bladed yellow for him. Yeah.
MTF, what do you think?
I think we really deserve that at this point.
All right. Yeah, MTF?
I don't know. I gotta go classic blue, but maybe, like I said, maybe it's got that old gun saber thing designed from back in the day. From the old Rebels days, everyone can do DiCaprio point at the screen, like, I know that design.
That's actually where I'm hoping it goes. I hope it's a blue saber, and then Sabine give him the green saber, which looks very familiar to where Ahsoka was not too long ago, having a green and a blue saber, and it's all going to tie all of it back together. And yeah, that's where I'm hoping for it. Aside from that, was there anything we missed? I feel like there was one end scene, but I can't remember what it was off the top of my head.
Yeah, so I can close it out. So, Mike, if you want to go,
real
go ahead,
quick,
Mike.
I just want to jump in, and I want to say that I was shipping it. I feel like our little nodie, or a little nodie turtle people were shipping it. They wanted them to kiss. I can understand their language. They were like kiss, kiss, kiss. That the hug wasn't enough. Everyone was just waiting for a little smooch. So maybe we'll get one.
We'll get one by the end for sure. But yeah, Adom, you want to finish it off?
Maybe once the sun goes down on that planet, they can, Anyway, that's never mind. So I believe the end of the episode is back with Thrawn. He's talking to Morgan. I thought there was a very interesting thread in that conversation, because when they find out that Ahsoka is on her way, Thrawn tells Morgan, hey, I need to know everything about her, her background, who her master is. And this ties directly to one of the Thrawn books, Thrawn Treason. This book has two timelines. One takes place after Return of the Jedi, and there's one that takes place during the Clone Wars. And in the books, Thrawn meets Anakin Skywalker, and they go on a mission together to rescue Padme. So I'm very interested to see if they bring this in, because Thrawn clearly is going to learn who Ahsoka's master is, and he's going to think to himself, oh, I know this person. It's funny because in the book, in the post-Return of the Jedi timeline, Thrawn clearly knows that Anakin is Vader, but Vader doesn't want to admit it when they're together. And so Thrawn will mention Anakin, and Vader would just be like, Anakin Skywalker is dead. And Thrawn's just like, yeah, okay, bro, sure. You're standing right here. Sure. So that's going to be really interesting. And then the end of the episode, Thrawn basically tells the Night Sisters, hey, I need to borrow some of your dark magic once again. He clearly has done them a great service, because he keeps cashing in these favors for them. And I think that's also why that this zombie army is coming. He's kind of promised them, hey, I'm going to bring back, all the people that you've lost, take it back to the other galaxy, maybe even take it back to their home planet and go from there. So I love that the episode ended with Thrawn talking and the camera panning out, and there's kind of all these moving pieces. And I also love the fact that we didn't actually see Ahsoka and Huyang arrive on the planet.
Yeah, I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah, I was awesome. I was very happy that they did that. So no, I think that's the end of the episode. Let me know if I missed anything.
I think you nailed it, and that's going to lead us into a wonderful intro for the next episode next week. But MTF, what are your thoughts on the ending of this episode?
I mean, what I will say is that I was surprised that he was knowledgeable about Balin and his history, but it seemed like he didn't know Ahsoka's history. That seemed a little off to me, because someone as learned as him, someone who would have known, who at this point, presumably, who Darth Vader was and who Darth Vader used to be, the name Ahsoka Tano would have, unless it was purged from the records somehow, should have raised an eyebrow for him. So I don't know how they're going to fill that gap in terms of why he doesn't have that piece of information, despite being the master strategist who definitely does his research. But it could just be that he knew her by a different name or something like that. But hopefully he'll get a quick download and he'll be able to use all the history, all the seasons of the Clone Wars, all the backstory. He'll even he'll break out some art from Ahsoka's homeworld, and he's even seen the Tales of the Jedi shorts, so he can show her that cat that she wrote.
Oh my god. All right, guys. I think that's the end of the episode. Real quick, Adom, where can people find you?
At House Coop on, I'm not going to say, we'll say Twitter and IG, if I still call it. The app formerly known as Twitter, yes.
MTF, where can people find you and your podcast or wherever?
Yeah, so while Twitter remains free, You can find me there at MTFIII and the podcast Racial Draft Pod. You can also find Racial Draft on all your podcast platforms, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple, blah blah blah. You can also find us on racialdraft.com. I own the domain name, and AOL, IG. There's Racial Draft pages there as well. But yeah, we're winding down season 6 and about to start ramping up for season 7, where we change the complexion of the comic book universe one draft pick at a time. Hit that catchphrase.
Real quick,
But,
did you just say AOL?
Yeah, I said AOL, but I mean I meant Facebook, but it's the same
I'm
thing.
like, what the hell? AOL's still around?
Are you sure that's
Well,
you on
thank
there?
Yes,
You got the gray hair and everything, you know? I'd believe it.
Dial up your modem, put your DVD into your DVD drive, and get yourself 10 free hours of the Racial Draft podcast.
You've got racial draft mail.
Well, thank you both for coming on. It's always a pleasure having y'all and talking about Star Wars and every other thing with nerd culture. Adom, Michael, thank you so much. We love you guys. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Maria Josh. When Adom mentioned how Ezra looked like Jesus, she and I had that exact same conversation earlier today. So, big shout out to all of our fans out there. This episode will go live in a couple days, and I do want to apologize for last week's episode not going up. I just didn't have time. But that'll be up tomorrow. When this goes live, it'll be up yesterday. And then this episode will go up on Friday. But that's all I have tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great time. And until next time, Salaam Nerds.
Thanks, guys. Peace.